It's been a remarkable journey. It came at the end of a traditional career in corporate America, and it's been an absolute blessing in my life. I mean, it's just made every day exciting and challenging, and um, I can't say enough about the direction that it's taken me in. So I'm I'm a huge advocate for late blooming entrepreneurs, and as I said in my TED talk, um, older entrepreneurs have a 70% success rate launching new businesses.
Welcome back. One of the pillars that Transition Network does is retirement and entrepreneurship. And to that end, we are providing you an interview with Paul Tasner. Now, Paul is the founder and president of PulpWorks, a sustainable packaging company replacing toxic single-use plastic packaging with molded pulp solutions from 100% agricultural or paper waste that is compostable, recyclable, biodegradable, and plastic-free. Paul is well known for having done a TED Talk titled How I Became an Entrepreneur at 66. That's right, 66. So he fits in perfectly into that transitioning into retirement side of things. And he is going to talk about how he went from his career into founding PulpWorks and the lessons that he's learned going forward. So stay tuned. Watch this interview, and don't forget to click subscribe so that the algorithms bring you your information when you need it in a timely manner. Thanks, and enjoy the interview. Well, thanks, Paul, for joining us. Before we get started, why don't you tell a bit about yourself and what you've been doing and how you got here?
Sure, my pleasure, Neil. Well, I think what as I recall from our earlier conversations, what attracted you to getting in touch with me was my TED Talk in 2017, and pleased to say that it reached a number of people, an embarrassingly high number of people, that I'm absolutely delighted about, and it covered the areas of entrepreneurship, the environment, and ageism, and all of those issues near and dear to me, as I've been exploring my own entrepreneurial venture since 2011. So it's been going. We're in our 15th year now,
Mhm.
um, and it's been a remarkable journey. It came at the end of a traditional career in corporate America, and it's been an absolute blessing in my life. I mean, it's just made every day exciting and challenging, and um, I can't say enough about the direction that it's taken me in. So I'm I'm a huge advocate for late blooming entrepreneurs, and as I said in my TED talk, um, older entrepreneurs have a 70% success rate launching new businesses, and that's those are incredible odds. And so I can't see any reason why there aren't more of us out there getting the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, I
So
completely agree. You started up PulpWorks, so let's give a bit of a blurb on what PulpWorks is and
sure.
when you started it, and go from there.
I had a long, decades long, 40 years or more, career in consumer packaging and manufacturing, consumer goods manufacturing and packaging. And in the latter part of that corporate career, I became more involved in what one might call sustainable packaging, packaging that wasn't a toxic um, addition to our already troubled environment. And so when I left that career and embarked on something entrepreneurial, I chose to continue down that path of sustainable packaging. And the area that I work in is called molded fiber or molded pulp packaging. Folks are familiar with it from the egg carton in their refrigerator. That's an example of molded pulp packaging. It's not the sexiest example, but it's been around for decades, and it does represent the earlier technology in this field. And our work builds on that. It's a little more sophisticated, and it's aimed at more for a more premium look for higher priced items. And so we tend to compare our packaging to what you might to what you might see from Apple, for instance. If you buy an Apple product, particularly an Apple iPhone, you open that package when you get it home, and you see your iPhone sitting there in a little white cradle. That white cradle is molded fiber packaging. Today it is. It didn't always. It wasn't
Yeah.
always that way, but today it is. It's molded fiber packaging, probably from sugarcane waste, and that's the medium that we work in. So I have I have more fun comparing our packaging to Apple packaging than I do to egg cartons. Clearly, so
Right.
that's the impression I'd like to leave our viewers with.
So when did you start PulpWorks? And
2011.
2011. So it's been a 14, 15-year journey
It,
so far.
correct.
How much time from when you left corporate America to when you started PulpWorks?
Two
Tell me a bit
years.
of 2 years.
Two
And what
two
was that
years.
journey like? And
Um,
what was it just a normal retirement, or were you not ready for retirement if something happened to move you out of corporate America?
I absolutely I was not ready for retirement. Something happened. I was fired, along with several other folks. It was the end of the economic,
2011, right?
um, this
2000,
was early. This was 2009. So the country was still suffering the effects of the recession. Company I worked for struggled during that period of time. The board of directors saw fit to let the CEO go as the captain of the ship. That was demoralizing to many of us, including me. He was an amazing individual. Really cared a great deal for him. Um, he was responsible for bringing me on board at that company, and they followed that up with the appointment of a gentleman that I didn't have a lot of respect for. So I wasn't very good at masking my feelings, and found myself on the chopping block shortly thereafter, along with some other folks. Company has since recovered from the trials of the recession and has been, bought out by a much larger entity, and that, they're still around today and doing well. I trust. Um, but I spent the next couple of years doing consulting work. I had a wonderful and large network, and I'd been in the business for over 40 years. So I leaned on my consulting background, and was able to generate income that way, but all the time looking for something to really pour myself into. I didn't want to spend the last years of my career um, doing doing consulting work. I just didn't want to do it. It did. I wanted to do something special. I felt as if I had. I know this sounds a bit maudlin, I guess, if that's the right word. I wanted, I had one more shot, I thought, at doing something special,
Right.
and I didn't want to waste that shot. Um, Sounds like a line from the Hamilton play, but um, I didn't. I really wanted it to count, and so I took 2 years to land on something, and when I landed on it, it felt really good. It felt right, and that's the area that I pursued. So, um,
So let's explore that, how you landed here.
yeah,
Because there's other people that are going to want to figure out where to go themselves.
right.
How did you figure out where to land with into PulpWorks?
Well, I I chose an area that I'd already had some exposure to as a corporate person. It wasn't an unknown area to me. Um, I chose an area that I had some exposure to. I chose an area where I knew there were people that I knew who were working in that area, either as, entrepreneurs or managers. So it was hardly unknown to me, and I felt like it was the next big thing in sustainable packaging.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think I was wrong. I just didn't estimate the ramp that it would take to get there. It was pretty. I moved into this area pretty early,
Okay.
and probably too early, but that's all hindsight now. Um, but I guess um, I was moving into an area of work that I was already familiar with, and that was a big deal for me because I didn't feel like I had to learn violin making, from scratch. I was working in my chosen field. It was just a bit of a corollary to that.
Right.
I greatly admire folks who give up a career in accounting to make violins. I mean, I can't imagine the change that one has to go through in order. Um, but I didn't have that challenge. I was moving into an area where I had expertise, or at least I had some experience. That
Hmm.
that 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 gave me a feeling of confidence, I guess. So
I would
uh,
suggest that, for example, the violin makers, a friend of mine
yeah,
is,
yeah,
he's probably a year or two older than myself. We're both, you know, right on that edge of
yeah.
retirement type thing. But he's had a hobby for years making guitars,
Uh-huh.
and he sells them like one at a time for very well known musicians and artists. Um, so I kept suggesting to him, why don't you start transitioning into that since you love making them so much? His
Yes.
thing was it's a hobby. He didn't want to turn that into a business
Yeah.
because then he'd lose that love. But
I
it he would do something well in something he already knows, just like
yeah.
what you've done is kept with something that you already know. So it
Yeah.
sounds like that's a trick there.
Yes, and I mean, far be it from me to, tell him how he should feel, but
Yeah.
turning it from a hobby into a business isn't necessarily going to turn it sour. He still
Mhm.
loves guitar making, and he'll love profiting from guitar making. It sounds like he's already got a business if he sells them to well-known musicians.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's just not doing it at scale.
Exactly.
And you know, I, I'm doing pretty much what I used to do. It may be a different format, pulp versus plastic or something, but I'm doing pretty much what I've been doing all my life. But I'm doing it for myself now. I'm not doing it
Mm.
for the man. I'm doing it for me. And
Mm.
that's all the difference in the world. It makes all the difference in the world. Even the most tedious parts of my business. And believe me, there are lots of parts of any running any business that are quite tedious. They're detailed and they're boring. They're not that boring to me because it's my business.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't mind my asking, and feel
Yes.
free not to tell me the exact
Yeah,
number,
yeah.
maybe a range, roughly how old were you when you started PulpWorks?
No, I'm not. I'm proud of it. I was 64 when I left my corporate job. I spent two
Okay,
years bouncing around in the corporate, in the consulting world.
right.
And so I was 66 when I started PulpWorks. So yes, I
Yeah,
passed my 80th birthday last year.
really.
Yeah,
Sir,
well, do the math.
you really don't look like you're out of your 60s yet.
Oh wow.
There you go. Nice
You
compliment
just
to you.
you just became my new best friend. So
Thank you. There you go. Okay, so you started up PulpWorks. Tell me about that first year. What were some of the roadblocks you were running into? There's going to be your typical starting up of a business, but which roadblocks were tied to the ageism aspect of things?
sure. Um, the original intent of the business for my original intent was a brick and mortar business. I wanted to raise money to construct a facility where we could manufacture custom manufacture for our clients molded fiber products, premium molded fiber packaging for all manner of companies. Apple, you name it. I needed to raise money to do that. Not, not an enormous amount by, VC, in the world of VC money raises, it wasn't an enormous amount, but it was certainly more than I had.
Mhm.
Um, that's where I met with ageism. Um, um, I had a partner at the time, and we spent that whole first year going from investor meeting to investor meeting. So, I mean, I do take some, very little, but some comfort from the fact that investors wanted to talk to us. So we made the cut. The 50 resumes or the 50 pitch decks that they see every month, and they invite three people to come in and talk to them at their monthly meeting. We were among those three people. So there's something flattering about that. But we never got past that. We never made it to that one that they're going to invest in. And I understood that, not because of my age. I do fault them for that, but um, you know, I, I was based in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time. Investors have any number of IT ventures to invest in, wherever they turn. So, given the opportunity to make their investment in the next Google or Facebook, why would they invest in a company that turns garbage into packaging? It's
Mm.
just they have a lot bigger and better opportunities than that. So I get why we were, the one that they're going to write a check to, but I didn't know that. I mean, I'd never gone down this path before. I had to learn that, and it took a year before I let it. Of course, I thought it was the best venture imaginable. How could they not invest in
It,
what we were doing?
it was your
You know,
baby.
yeah, yeah. Of course, from their perspective, it wasn't the best, and it took a year before I finally woke up to the fact that we're not going to raise that money. We need to we need to change our model here. I still like the idea of what we were out to do, but we needed to change our model. We needed to find partners who would do the manufacturing for us.
Okay.
And I labored in that area of business my whole career, and I knew some partners who would do this, or I thought would do this for us, and um, that was challenging. Most of the companies we talked to were interested, but not until we had larger volumes to share with them. But I did find a handful that would work with us as we were growing.
Okay.
Um, and an early partner of ours, and still my partner to this day, said something that I'll never stop repeating because I thought it was so remarkable. Is that he knew it was going to be tough for me going, and he he could wait to be paid until I collected my fees. So
So he in essence fronted you terms.
yeah, yeah. So
Nice.
he's got my loyalty for as long as he has a business and as long as he wants it.
Good.
That was just remarkable. So
So so instead of I'm making the assumption you wanted the money for purchasing the equipment so you could do it. So you changed your model from that to making use of subcontractors, for lack of a better term.
correct. That's exactly what we did, and we didn't need the same amount of capital now to run our business.
Right.
We didn't have to pay ourselves a salary until we could afford to. I mean, any money we were able to use would be marketing expenses, trade shows, low cost items that we had control over. And so little by little, we engage a new customer and, turn a bit of a profit. And little by little, we got to the point where we could pay before we collected our money with our partners.
Okay. And how big
And
is PulpWorks now?
in what terms?
Um, Revenue, number of employees.
Um, well, the revenues I prefer to keep
Understood.
private, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's fine.
Um, and a number of employees right now, all of our employees are, save for one, my son, who's my colleague and my partner now. All of our other key employees are folks that we use as needed. They're
Okay.
either paid per diem or paid per project, but we don't have any other roles that require a full-time employee. That
I understand.
those roles are fulfilled by myself and my son, who joined me, in recent years.
Okay.
So accounting, legal, design, all of that is as needed. And we have folks that we turn to on a regular basis for that support.
So it's interesting because in 2015, I'm coming out of the IT industry myself.
Right,
In 2015, I started seeing a transition with enterprises, and I've basically been focused on enterprise class organizations, 3,000 people and up, typically 10,000, 15,000 person organizations.
right,
And I saw these organizations starting to outsource various different components of the business so that they were just focusing on their core business.
right,
And what ended up happening is you'd see accounting outsourced, legal outsourced, um, accounts payable, IT, all these various different departments that were not part of the core business outsourced. And as a result, it looks like they were downsizing, but they weren't. They were getting more efficient because they were making use of specialty firms focused on just one area of business.
right.
And it sounds like you created PulpWorks from scratch using that model of a core making use of subcontracted businesses, if that makes sense.
It is. You're precisely correct. That's the area of manufacturing that I've labored in my entire career, outsourcing.
Mm.
Um, I've worked for many larger companies during my career, and smaller ones. But the one thing that's been constant throughout my career is that I've been responsible for the outsourcing that company does. Some
Mm.
companies outsource everything, and by outsourcing I mean here specifically manufacturing.
Yeah.
Some companies outsource everything. There are still some companies that outsource nothing, which is kind of a tricky thing to do. But I've always worked for companies that outsourced a portion of their product line. Usually
Yeah.
the items that they had less expertise in were outsourced to people who had more expertise.
Hmm. And it's
So,
also you're outsourcing the cost centers as opposed to the revenue generators.
correct,
Right. Right.
correct,
So you were
correct.
still doing the sales, finding your customers, signing the agreements, and then triggering the entire manufacturing process. And any of the what I call supporting services, you make use of when you need.
Correct.
Interesting.
The
Very
the
nice.
things that we become involved in intimately firsthand are anything related to the manufacturing and also the logistics of the completed work, et cetera. That we hold on to that firsthand
Mhm.
and act somewhat like the customer's manufacturing department.
Good. Good. Okay.
So that's that,
So,
that's less work that they have to do in that area.
so you were able to get going without spending a whole lot of money. In essence, your sales would pay for the startup. Would that be
Correct.
fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And I say that simply because anybody out there that's looking at starting up but worried about risking their retirement funds, you don't necessarily have to spend those retirement funds to start up that small business to move forward.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Right. Now, here's the question. You're 67. I'm saying that because that's what you look. How's your
Okay.
energy level now?
Oh, good. Good. I mean, there's things I can't do as well anymore. I mean, I'm 80 years old. I
Hmm.
really can't. I can't play basketball. um, um, I, uh, I think I know my limits, et cetera. But my energy is derived from my enthusiasm for the business. Um, I often tell or I often provide the analogy. When I worked in the corporate world, I can remember, um, you know, the distaste I had when opening my computer in the morning and seeing, 60 emails, and, half of them were nonsensical, and half of the others were asking you to attend a meeting that you didn't want to go to. I'm exaggerating to make a point,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I, I used to loathe opening up my computer and seeing that list of emails because I knew there was nothing, very little that was going to get me excited. Um, and now I can't wait to open my computer in the morning to see what I've got. I still get, 30 pieces of junk mail, but I get interesting messages too. I get potential inquiries about business. I literally can't wait to look online in the morning and see what the new day has brought. And that's a great feeling to have every day. Here
Yeah.
I am 15 years into my business, and I still feel like that every morning.
I'm a fir-
Um,
I'm a firm believer that you're it's not the body that allows you to age, it's your mind.
right.
And going as far as you want, as long as your mind is active, I think you could live as long as you want. I look at my dad, he's 95 this year.
Wow. Wonderful.
Um, when he was forced into retirement at 61. He did similar to you for the first few years. He tried doing consulting. He was in the education system. But then his hobby was genealogy,
Ah,
family trees, that sort of stuff.
right, right.
And he started doing that for everybody. Now he didn't charge because people would come, "Hey, I understand you've done your family tree." Like he's got us back to like 900 AD,
Whoa,
like over 1,000 years, our family tree. But he started doing
wow.
that for everybody around us, and it just drove him to keep doing that and kept his mind active. And he's now,
Absolutely.
like I said, 95.
Fantastic. I
So I suspect that's you're going to age very well as well because of the keeping the mind active.
I hope so. I believe that's a possibility. I was really pleased to learn after my TED talk. I I initially, I mean, as soon as my talk landed on the TED website, they I think TED reaches like 24 million viewers, subscribers. So
Hmm.
I mean, you could talk about building a paper mache igloo and probably get 5 million views on TED because they just have so many subscribers. Um, I got beautiful messages from everyone that reached out to me, whether it was email or through the company website or however they reached out. I mean, they're just heartwarming messages, and they were mostly from individuals, and um, uh, but occasionally there was kind of a different type of message, and one was from a life insurance company in the Netherlands. Um,
Okay.
I forget. I'm trying to think of their name. They're a worldwide life insurance company. In the U.S., they're known by Transamerica, just
Okay.
like the pyramid in San Francisco. I think it's Eon or Aon or something.
Okay. Right.
They're in Amsterdam, I think. They reached out and their message to me was, unbeknownst to you, because you were focused on your business, but unbeknownst to you, you have done the very best thing you possibly can for your longevity. Of course,
Interesting.
their business is longevity. They like you to live a long life because then they don't need to pay death benefits until you die. So longevity is their middle name. And they said,
Mhm.
what you're doing, you're doing wonders for your longevity because you're just you're using your mind to create new things, to be engaged every day in a healthy way. That's so much better than anything else you could be doing. And I said, sort of tongue in cheek, better than playing golf 5 days a week. And they said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's great for cardio. Walking a golf course is great cardio exercise, but it doesn't do that much for your mind, really.
Yeah.
You,
How
you,
many hours a day do you work?
oh, well, far less today than in the early days. I mean, because of all of our systems, and we've sort of got it down to a science now. But I mean, it depends on the crisis of the day or the
Right.
opportunity of the day. So sometimes it's a full day, but
Hmm.
those are actually rare, to be honest. It's probably between 1 and 4 hours, maybe.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Keeps you busy, gives you
Yes.
your income, gives
Yes.
you a sense of pride that you've created something and you're growing something.
And with my son joining me in the business, there's a sense of succession and his enthusiasm for it, and he's got other options too, but this is where he wants to stake his claim for the time being, and that's very heartwarming and flattering to me, that he wants to do that. He's the best colleague I've ever had. So what's nothing wrong with that picture at all.
So one of the other pillars, like this pillar goes to retirement, that this conversation is
Right.
goes to retirement as and entrepreneurship. We have a separate pillar that talks with regards to couples and family dynamics, how that
Uh-huh.
changes.
Yes.
You've just touched on you and your son working together, that pillar. So how has that family dynamic changed, or has it?
Um, well, I mean, well, there was a big change in him joining me as a colleague, as
Hmm.
opposed to being just my son, which is,
Yeah.
so ordinarily it's more than enough for most people, but now he's a colleague, so that's the change.
Hmm.
But has it changed anything else about our dynamic? Well, it's first of all, I get to see a different side of him now. I get to see him thinking and operating as, an entrepreneurial business person in a technical field, and I get to appreciate, his intellect and his creativity that he, didn't always have a chance to exhibit to me, being only my son. I mean,
Hmm.
I'd get anecdotal glimpses of it, through his work at school or in
Yeah.
another job or something like that. But now I get to firsthand view of
Mm.
that side of him or those sides of him that I didn't have before. And so I have a renewed appreciation for him and a respect and admiration for him. And as I see him demonstrate this kind of intellect and creativity, he's very good at what he's doing. He's very good. He was a quick study, and I remember being a little concerned at first that how long is this going to take before he is kind of up to speed, and whatever number I had in mind, he cut that in half. And, it's been marvelous.
Interesting. Interesting. No, I think so. I think I mentioned it earlier. I'm 61.
Right.
My kids are in their mid 20s. They're still in that I probably know more than dad
Yeah.
phase. Um, it's and that I know that changes. Um, but because I have sibling kids in their 20s that I have to keep an eye on and make sure they're going fine. And I have an older father I have to keep an eye on and help. There's that sandwich
Right.
um, mentality that I have going on all the time as well.
Right. Right.
Um, is there any of that that's going on? Trying to keep an eye on him to make sure he's comfortable and that sort of thing from a father-son perspective, as opposed to a boss employee point of view.
Um, well, no sandwich. I mean, my folks are long since passed. Um, but it's a wonderful question. I think, of course, I still have those concerns as a dad,
Mm,
not just as a employer or colleague, um, but as a dad. And I guess I've satisfied myself for the time being in that the success of the business um, will ensure his own success, as he
nice.
goes through those years. And if for some calamitous reason there isn't that success or that long-term success that I hope for, um, he's certainly a young enough man to make the pivot and move in another direction to satisfy his financial needs, whether it's entrepreneurial or signing on with an entity of some sort. I mean, he'll bring wonderful experience to wherever he goes. I just hope he has reason to stay. Of course, that's
Yeah.
uh,
Well, let's finish off this interview with a simple question. If
sure.
you were to talk to your younger self when you were
Yeah,
66,
yeah.
what advice would you give yourself now?
That's a good question, and I think I touched on this a little earlier. But you're giving me the benefit of hindsight now. Looking
Yeah,
back, um, this business struggled and still struggles. I mean, we have some regulatory winds at our back now that will compel companies to give our approach to packaging a closer look because they're going to be penalized for using disposable single-use plastic packaging.
Hmm.
In 7 states, I believe now, there are laws, or there will be laws in 7 states that will penalize companies for using um, disposable single-use plastic, as there are in all Canadian provinces and most of Western and Central Europe. Um, I don't know that we'll ever have all 50 states signing on, but I'm sure it'll increase. And this is a new development. Until that, it was really tough persuading people to change packaging for something healthier, more sustainable, because if it had any kind of premium price associated, whether it was a tenth of a penny or 5 pennies, they could not justify making the switch. Now they can justify it. And you can justify it in hard economic terms because of these penalties that they're going to be facing. I didn't have that benefit earlier on. In fact, I didn't have that benefit until last year. So my advice to my earlier person would have been, you're way too early in this game to
Mm.
compete successfully. It's going to be a long, hard struggle. I might have done it anyway because I was so passionate about it. But hopefully, I would have looked long and hard at it before I made the decision to go forward. But I didn't know how long and hard the trudge was going to be. And I was naive enough or passionate enough or both to think that the idea itself was compelling to companies. That, of course, they'd get rid of their toxic plastic for this wonderful sustainable material. Not true. Not true at all. And it's still not true today. I mean, my heart sinks when I find out that our next visit is with the purchasing agent because they typically are not interested in looking at anything that doesn't make them shine to upper
Mm.
management. So yeah, it's a tough area to be in if you can't compete really head to head on price. And we're close, but plastics had a 50-year head start on us.
Right. So I'm hearing two things. One, it's not going to happen as quick as you think. So
Yeah.
keep pushing at it, and it will happen. Just not it's not going to happen in 2 or 3 days.
Right.
And the second that I'm hearing is look for the places where change is occurring because the change will give you the opportunity.
Well said. Well
Okay.
said. Yeah. And
Well,
and be honest with yourself.
yeah,
As passionate as you might be about what you've got in mind, be really honest with yourself.
right, right,
Maybe put it off a year or two or whatever, but be honest with yourself.
right. Well, Paul, I want to thank you very much for your time with this. Um, the link to PulpWorks will be down below, as well as I guess to LinkedIn. Would that be appropriate for people contacting you as well?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm personally listed on LinkedIn, as is PulpWorks as a
Okay.
business, and of course, our preference would be for people to visit our website and see what we do, and
Yeah.
they can reach us through that, and that's pulpworksinc.com.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
and I appreciate your promoting us that way, of course.
Naturally.
Um,
Naturally. I'll also put the link to your TED Talk down below in case
oh,
somebody
thank
wants
you.
to go back and take a look at that. So
Excellent. Yeah, appreciate that. And thank you for your interest in this and for what you're doing to highlight what us older entrepreneurs are trying to accomplish.
I think there's a lot of need for these type of conversations. There too much focus is on the 20-year-old and 30-year-old, not enough on the greatest generations, so to
I
speak.
I received a message today from an IT fella from Mexico City who's doing exactly that today. He wants to
Yeah.
create a forum for older entrepreneurs, and he was just reaching out with a few questions, but talking about exactly what you and I have been talking about. So
Yeah.
it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. I think because the entire population is aging,
Yeah,
I think this is a very pertinent conversation for everybody.
it
So,
is. It is indeed. Thank you, sir.
well, thank you very much, Paul. I much appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye bye.